Welcome everyone to our channel Sparkling Heart. Today's story is a deeply emotional journey about Tuấn and Hana, a young couple stepping into parenthood. From the nervous yet exciting moment of going to their first prenatal checkup together, to the overwhelming happiness of seeing their baby on the ultrasound screen, and especially the beautiful moment they discover they're expecting a baby girl, every second is filled with love and meaning. It's not just about joy, but also about connection, commitment, and the promise of building a happy family together. If you enjoy heartwarming, real-life stories like this, don't forget to thumbs up, share, and subscribe to our channel so you won't miss the next meaningful stories. Thank you for your support. Tuấn gently held Hana's hand as they walked into the clinic, both of them carrying a quiet mix of excitement and nervous anticipation. It was their very first time going to a prenatal checkup together, and the significance of the moment weighed beautifully on their hearts. The soft scent of disinfectant lingered in the air, and the low hum of conversations around them made everything feel strangely surreal. Hana's fingers tightened slightly around Tuấn hand, betraying the anxiety she tried so hard to hide. She leaned closer to him, her head almost resting against his shoulder, seeking comfort in his presence. Tuấn noticed every small gesture, every subtle breath she took, and responded with a reassuring squeeze of her hand, silently promising that she would never have to face anything alone. As they approached the reception desk, Tuấn took the lead, calmly handling the paperwork while occasionally glancing back at Hana with a warm, encouraging smile. His composure gave her strength. To him, this wasn't just a routine visit, it was a milestone, a step closer to a future they had dreamed of together. Hana watched him quietly, her heart swelling with gratitude and love. She realized how lucky she was to have someone who stood by her so naturally, so wholeheartedly. When everything was ready, Tuấn guided her gently to the waiting area, making sure she was comfortable before sitting beside her. He didn't say much, but his presence spoke louder than words. Time seemed to pass slower than usual as they waited to be called. Hana's thoughts drifted between excitement and worry. Was the baby healthy? Would everything be okay? She placed her free hand on her belly, unconsciously protective, as if she could already feel the tiny life growing inside her. Tuấn noticed and softly placed his hand over hers, creating a small, tender moment that felt like a promise shared between three souls. He leaned in slightly and whispered that everything would be fine, his voice calm and steady, like an anchor in the middle of a restless sea. When the nurse finally called Hana's name, both of them stood up almost at the same time. Tuấn instinctively reached for her again, guiding her toward the examination room. His protective nature became even more evident in that moment. Every step he took was mindful of her, every glance filled with care. Hana took a deep breath as they approached the door, her heart pounding with anticipation. She looked at Tuấn, and he gave her a gentle nod, his eyes full of quiet confidence. In that simple exchange, Hana found the courage she needed. Together, they stepped into the room, not just as a couple, but as two people on the verge of becoming parents, ready to embrace whatever came next, hand in hand. The moment the ultrasound began, the atmosphere in the room shifted into something almost sacred. Hana lay still on the examination bed, her eyes fixed on the screen, while Tuấn stood close beside her, his hand never leaving hers. The doctor moved the probe gently across her abdomen, and for a brief second everything felt suspended in time. Then suddenly, a faint image appeared, soft, flickering, and almost unreal. Both of them instinctively leaned forward, their breaths catching as they tried to make sense of what they were seeing. It was their baby. At first, neither of them spoke. The tiny figure on the screen, though still developing, carried a presence so powerful it overwhelmed them. Hana's eyes began to glisten as emotion rushed through her. She had imagined this moment countless times, yet nothing could truly prepare her for the reality of seeing her child for the very first time. A tear slipped quietly down her cheek, and she didn't even bother to wipe it away. Beside her, Tuấn felt his chest tighten with a mixture of awe and tenderness. He had always tried to be strong, to be the steady one, but now even he couldn't suppress the wave of emotion rising inside him. The doctor smiled warmly, pointing at the screen and explaining each detail, the tiny heartbeat, the developing features, the steady growth. Tuấn listened carefully, nodding as if committing every word to memory, while his eyes kept drifting back to the screen. The rhythmic flicker of the heartbeat felt almost magical, like a silent message from their child saying, "I'm here." Without realizing it, Tuấn tightened his grip on Hana's hand, and she responded by intertwining her fingers with his, drawing strength from the connection they shared. Then came the moment that made everything even more real. The doctor paused for a second, glanced at both of them, and said gently, "Congratulations, it's a baby girl." The words seemed to echo in the room, lingering in the air as they sank in. Hana turned her head toward Tuấn, her eyes wide with joy and disbelief. "A girl," she whispered softly, almost as if she was afraid the moment would disappear if she spoke too loudly. Tuấn looked back at her, his expression breaking into a radiant smile that he couldn't hold back. For a brief moment, neither of them spoke further. They simply looked at each other, sharing a silent understanding that went beyond words. In that instant, their world expanded, filled with images of a little girl running through their home, laughter echoing in every corner, tiny hands reaching out for theirs. Tuấn felt a deep sense of responsibility settle into his heart, but it was wrapped in an overwhelming warmth. He gently brushed away the tear on Hana's cheek, his thumb lingering there as if to reassure her that this happiness was real. Hana's gaze returned to the screen, her heart now calmer but fuller than ever before. She imagined holding her daughter for the first time, hearing her cry, watching her grow. The fears that once lingered in her mind began to fade, replaced by a quiet confidence. Beside her, Tuấn stood tall, his presence steady and unwavering. He leaned slightly closer and whispered that their daughter would be loved beyond measure, his voice carrying both promise and devotion. In that softly lit room, surrounded by the gentle hum of medical equipment, a new chapter truly began, not just the confirmation of a life growing, but the deep, unspoken bond of a family already forming, stronger with every heartbeat they had just witnessed together. When they finally stepped out of the clinic, the world outside felt different, brighter, warmer, and somehow more meaningful than before. The sunlight gently touched their faces as if welcoming them into a new chapter of life. Hana walked beside Tuấn, still holding his hand, but now her steps were lighter, filled with a quiet joy that she could hardly contain. Neither of them spoke immediately, they didn't need to. The happiness they shared was so full, so overwhelming, that words felt almost unnecessary. As they reached the small path leading away from the clinic, Tuấn glanced at Hana and smiled, a deep, genuine smile that reflected everything he was feeling inside. "A baby girl," he said softly, as if savoring each word. Hana laughed gently, her eyes shining with warmth. She repeated the words in a whisper, letting them settle into her heart. For a moment, they both paused, simply standing there and letting the reality sink in. Their daughter was real. She was already a part of their lives. They began to talk about the future, their voices filled with excitement and wonder. Tuấn started imagining what their little girl would be like. Would she have Hana's gentle eyes or his smile? Would she be quiet and thoughtful, or full of energy and laughter? Hana playfully teased him, saying she hoped their daughter would be strong and kind just like him. The conversation flowed naturally, weaving dreams into something that felt almost tangible. They talked about names, about decorating a small room, about the tiny clothes they would buy together. Each idea painted a clearer picture of the life waiting for them ahead. As they walked further, Tuan's expression grew more serious, though his eyes remained soft. He slowed down slightly and turned to face Hana, holding both of her hands now. He told her, in a calm but steady voice, that he would do everything in his power to protect and care for both her and their daughter. He spoke of working harder, building a stable home, and being the kind of father their child could always rely on. There was no hesitation in his words, only sincerity and determination. Hana listened quietly, her heart swelling with emotion. She squeezed his hands gently and nodded, her eyes glistening once more. She told him that she didn't need anything more than what they already had: love, trust, and each other. For her, that was enough to face any challenge ahead. She believed in him, just as she believed in the family they were about to build together. In that moment, there was a quiet strength between them, a shared understanding that whatever came, they would face it side by side. They continued their walk, now more relaxed, occasionally laughing and exchanging soft, affectionate glances. Hana placed her hand on her belly again, this time with a sense of connection that felt deeper than before. She imagined her daughter listening, growing, feeling every bit of love surrounding her. Tuan noticed and gently placed his hand over hers, just as he had done before, but now it carried an even stronger meaning, a silent promise of protection and love. As the day slowly moved forward, their journey as parents had already begun, not with grand gestures, but with simple, heartfelt moments like these. And somewhere in the quiet rhythm of their steps, in the warmth of their intertwined hands, and in the dreams they dared to speak aloud, a beautiful future was already taking shape, one filled with laughter, love,